Alright, so just before the video starts, I really want to say thank you to someone that's very important to me and very important to a lot of people that are just like me. I want to start off by saying thank you to the North Melbourne Football Club. Your gutsy, awe-inspiring, morale-boosting win in round 24 of the 2023 AFL season. Just a wonderful win down in the heart of Tasmania. It got you that real big morale boosting win that just rocket started your 2024 season where you are still winless and getting blown out every game. And thanks to that win, thanks to your complete just amazing performance, you guys fell down to the number 2 pick. And for that, as a West Coast fan, I can't say thank you enough. Because your selflessness let you guys win your last game, leading into another winless season where you could have had a generational talent. But thanks to your guys' selflessness, the West Coast Eagles got the number 1 pick in that draft. And thanks to that, we got maybe the best young player I've ever seen. I can't say thank you enough. Because of North Melbourne's win in round 24, I get to see the next best player of all time wearing these colours right here. It's really a shame, if they just tanked one more game, North Melbourne, this would have been white and blue. What a shame. But anyway, now that we've got the Harley Reid glazing out of the way, let's get on to the video. Alright guys, we're back for another episode of the 2024 roller coaster where somehow I'm rank 41. I'm inside the top 50, which is like the top 0.01%, or 0.1%, something like that. Not strong suit in math. Top 50. A good score this week. I honestly, if you said I was going to hit 2,000 on Friday night, Saturday morning, I would not believe you. I'd say there's no way. But almost hit 2,100. Would have helped if not everyone got subbed this week. And also if I just didn't mess up the forward line. So I can't complain with that. It's the highest I've ever been, by far. I think before this year, the highest I'd ever been is 5K, something like that. A huge jump. So going into the team, this also, say you were wondering what's your philosophy on how you're getting so high? It's all in team value. So if I can't do it on here, I know it's easy to do on the phone. If you go by ranking, I'd say within the top 50 teams, there's only one team with a higher team value than mine. And that's one thing I've really been looking at this year, is trying to keep this up with those high-level teams. I'll see if I can actually find that. So, we'll go into the team in a minute. This is actually the second time I've had to record this, because the first time I forgot to turn the mic on. So where am I? I'm 41. So 13 million. None of these teams are even at 13 mil yet. Besides this guy. I think this is the only team that has higher than me. Yeah. So that's kind of my philosophy, if that's what you want to call it, right? Keep the team value up. Make sure all your players are kind of topped up in price when you're trading them out. And just get lucky, right, with players not getting injured. It's luck-based, right? It's fantasy sports. So going into the team, Sheasel 110. Not a terrible game from him, but it's just a matter of North Melbourne got pumped once again. And as for the intro before, for the 5 North Melbourne fans, I've hurt their feelings. Maybe your next number 1 pick won't leave you guys after a year. Maybe. Maybe you guys will actually learn how to draft if you look at your last 10 years of draft and you've only had one good player. So Sheezel was fine. It's just a matter of North Melbourne got pumped. Scaling didn't work in his on his side. Could have been a 120 game. Did slow down. I'd say in the third is when he really slowed down. Yeah, I know. Don't see an issue here. I still think he's a top 3 defender. The issue could be if he gets moved forward because of how bad North Melbourne are getting beat. I just don't see it though, because if you move him off that half back line, who is doing the playmaking in that team? Zach Fisher is a hack kick, right? Like, he's not very good. Who else is even in that back line that can kick an accurate ball consistently? Not a fan of it. I think you have to leave him there. Maybe just move him up into the midfield. He gets a little bit closer to goal, but yeah, I don't think you can move him out of like a playmaking position just because he's the best kick in the team by a long, long margin. Larky kicked whatever amount of goals it was last year, and Sheezel's a much better kicker than he is. Larky's just getting set up for like cheap ones in front of goal. Yeah. Hope he doesn't get moved. So Houston, 141. Great game from him. Not great from Port. So they were up 30-something. Gave up like a 70-point turnaround. So ended up losing by a huge margin as well. But for him, if I pulled up the kicking stats, I'd imagine he had most of, if not all of them. So this isn't a pick that I'm upset about at all. Did start a little slow, but he hasn't missed a ton this year, right? So 108, 105, 106. This is where people had Luke Ryan. I was like, oh man, I've really messed this up. But I mean, hasn't missed a ton, so I can't be too upset with this. And he's the type of player that, however Port's going, isn't really going to impact him. If anything, when they're losing, he does better, because he just kind of takes on more kicks and tries to be a bit more damaging. On to Nick Dacos. The first quarter, it's a quarter and a half of the second quarter, didn't look good. Looked like this was the Dacos that we've seen in the early part of the season, where 54 here, scraped to a 102 here. Didn't look great, but that second half, it just turned into like the Dacos show, basically. Like, the ball just kept finding him. He kept setting up guys and getting like the easy, like, beginning of the chain handball out. All that type of stuff, right? His issue has really been the team's not using him. And I don't mean that like in a bad way. It's just they're not trying to move the ball through him as much as they were last year. Last year was really like do or die by Dacos, which made them struggle like that back half of the year where he was kind of hurt. But yeah, this year they're going for more of like a spread approach, which isn't a bad thing. But it means that he's getting burnt on like handball receives and stuff like that, which isn't helping his Supercoach score, but I think he'll be fine by the end of the year. Naz, I'm not even going to say it's on him. That whole St Kilda team did horrible. So him and Steele, I was thinking like, oh, I've just ruined my rank, right? Like, I'm going down to like 2K. Yeah, if you had Naz, he didn't score anything. If you had Steele, he didn't score anything. If you had Marshall, he didn't score anything. It was just a terrible Thursday night for St Kilda owners, St Kilda player owners. Just sit with it, right? Like, if you're... What's his break even now? 128, he could miss that. Against Port, he'll probably miss it against... And I don't know, actually. Port might not be the worst. They're ranked 7th, which I think you want the lower number, the better. Here, lower number means they're easier to score on. Should be the other way around, if you're asking me. But, yeah, it is what it is. Because usually when you do fixture difficulty stuff, higher number means more difficult. That's typically the way people do that, but, yeah, it's whatever. Yeah, a kind of hit and miss scoring here. I don't know if he's going to be top 6. This could be a later on trade to Nick Martin or Hayden Young, whoever's doing better at the time. But for now, I think it's fine. I mean, it ranked in the top 50 with a not terrible score, but a score that could be a lot better. It's 500k. What did I'd say I brought him in around a bit. No, I've made money on him, so I brought him in at basement price. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep monitoring the Nas progression throughout the season. D'Ambrosio got subbed. I don't understand this. I mean, Hawks, Sam Mitchell. I don't know what he's doing as coach to sub D'Ambrosio, but so I do think he's still one of the better ball users in that team. A team that, like, you have guys like Newcomb who can't kick a straight ball, like, with any form of consistency. Yeah, I don't know. Is what is. I think he's fine though. Like, what's his break even? 45. If he plays next week and doesn't get subbed, he'll score. Is the MCG? So I'm hoping that benefits him. What is his scoring like at the MCG? 120, 80. I mean, 60. I'm not going to hold that against him. It was Geelong. Yeah, I mean, it's a possible trade. It depends on if it gets you an upgrade. And then as for Closey, which they said there was another way to pronounce the name, like more Irish to the name. I think it's like Closey or something like that. But yeah, he's doing fine. He didn't end up breaking the Goulden record. I think he would have had to ton or score like 91 plus. But still a great player. Dimmer's, as I woke up this morning, I saw Dimmer was talking about him. Yeah, young player, should be good for a couple of years, honestly, unless there's a huge drop-off in form. Gold Coast did not look good all game against Sydney. But, I mean, he kept popping up, right, doing things here and there. I think he had, like, 50 at the end of the first. So, going 50 end of the first to... it wasn't 50, but say around about the 50 mark to 25 the rest of the game isn't great, but anyone that watched that game probably saw that it just wasn't Gold Coast game, right? Like, they couldn't really get anything going. Zach Williams got subbed, so this is one where I might trade him out. Break-evens are not terrible, 62, but it is against Geelong, and the injury is apparently Achilles tightness or Achilles strain, Achilles awareness with his Achilles. He's torn that before. I might trade him out because I don't want to have to deal with this. Have a look at team sheets first. It is Saturday, so you'll see them Thursday night. Oh, actually, that locks out a couple of people, doesn't it? I mean, there's no one that I'd be... maybe Nick Martin, if you could afford getting up to him. But yeah, I don't know. I'd wait to see the team sheets. We'll see, though. Or didn't play, but I was going to use him to make a sub here. Say, like, Williams scored 90 plus, something like that. I would have looped his score in. Onto the midfield. So I did take the Butters captain, 127. Ended up being, like, the best score of the guys that I was actually going to captain. I do think I said last week the captaincy on Houston isn't a bad option, but you just have to be, like, way more gutsy than I am to do something like that. But yeah, I mean, end up 141, so it would have helped anyway. 127 from Butters looked like it was going to be a 150 game, to be honest, and then it just didn't end up happening. He had a great first quarter, missing the entire second quarter, and then just played like his normal game in the third and fourth without doing much. Really, that's very impressive for his standards. Yeah, I mean, could have been bigger, but it's fine. It's 127. Bont was good against St Kilda. I've already talked about the game. St Kilda got pumped. It wasn't even close. The scoreline flatters St Kilda, even though they got beat by almost more than they scored. Yeah, the scoreline benefits St Kilda here. Rao, 126. I thought he was really good. I think 126 is on the lower side, but like I said, when you get pumped, scaling doesn't work in your factor. Scaling doesn't work in your benefit, I should say. Yeah, the big body mids this year I found are very good. It's kind of got to do with like how umpires are calling stuff this year. They're not really calling holding the ball like at all. Um, so when you're bigger, you can just shrug off more tackles. So Rail, I'm fine with having. Still one of my favorite players to watch. Like since he came in the league, right? Only missed a ton once, and all the other games are like over 120. So yeah, I mean this is his lowest ton score. You take that. West Coast next week, you could go anywhere between 150 and 90. We'll see like what West Coast shows up. Brisbane game is going to be tough for him, but I guess it's the Q clash. Maybe there's a little bit more riding into it. North Melbourne, very easy game for him. Geelong's not going to be easy. This is where he's going to put up a stinker, right? So it's just by round 10, you want to have something that can kind of make up for a bad score, which I think between like Yo, a couple of rookies are still doing good. Should be able to get something. But I mean, I don't really mind this stretch. Like Essendon haven't been too hard to score against. St Kilda at times are, at times aren't. Freo, don't mind. Collingwood, I don't mind. Collingwood do give a big score. They're kind of like Richmond from years past. North again, and you got West Coast again towards the end of the year. And then if you're someone who plays for leagues, you've got Richmond as your like grand final matchup team. So in saying all that, Rao, good pick. Steele, on the other hand, great, amazing pick. Terrible, terrible week. Bad game from him. Couldn't really hit a target. Nothing was going his way, right? Like he'd kick the ball out, clanger. He'd pick the ball up, get tackled, holding the ball. Like it wasn't. Nothing was really going his way. But it wasn't going any like the way of any St Kilda player. Yo 112 didn't end up winning the Glendinning medal. Now it's like an extended name. It's not just Glendinning medal. It's like it's got something to do with like the fire department stuff down there, emergency services, I think. But yeah, 112 from him, backed up the 150 with a pretty good score. You take it, right? He's almost the same price as Nick Dacos, which is just crazy to think of. How much has he gone up? It's gone up 127k on the season. That's crazy. When did I bring him in? I think I brought him in here for the Richmond game. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't got him, I think it is too late now. Like, you're bringing him in at basically what I'd imagine his full price is going to be. Maybe he touches 600 this week. Like, what's the break even? 59. Yeah, he'll probably, like, hit the 600 mark. But, nah, I wouldn't bring him in. I'd look for other value players. And there's a fair couple this week. Took couldn't get around it for 3/4. Really only got into the game in the fourth, and by then the game was over. Ended up having like 20, I want to say like 20 odd touches. What was his stat line? Yeah, 23 touches, 7 tackles, a goal. Typically that's like a high 90 score, if not a ton. But, you know, like I said, they got beat by a fair bit. Matt Roberts, on the other hand, was just everywhere in like the second half. Blakey did get hurt. I don't think it was anything crazy. I think it just kind of like maybe copped a corky or something like that. And they didn't want to sub him out. So the benefactor of that was the ball was just moving through Roberts the entire second half. Great for his score. 117. Between him and Reid, the best rookies of this year. Some of the best rookies we've ever had, honestly. Like Roberts, Reid, closely almost broke the record. Sanders could have been that if he played for any other coach, I feel like. But yeah, these three are kind of like the best rookies this year. And if you miss Closey, what are you doing, right? Like, what are you doing? You should have brought him in last week. He had the lowest break even almost ever. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. But yeah, 117, and then so originally this was actually one of the North Melbourne guys. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Nguyen, Begoa Nguyen. I did end up making the trade because like boosting to trade him out and bring in McAuliffe. McAuliffe, or something like that. Brought him in to get the Harley Reid 147. I'm getting like mixed readings on him if he's going to keep his spot. I know that Richmond is dealing with a ton of injuries this year. So maybe you can't drop him. It is something that we'll know straight away. Even if he is dropped, he's just going to be my like permanent loop M11, which a lot of people are going to have a dead last mid spot because of Jai Clark. So it's not the worst ever. It gives me a loop. The issue is if he becomes a sub, like a routine sub for Richmond, then it's like, oh great, we've like this super dead pick. It's actually better if he doesn't play than is a sub, because if he doesn't play, you can use him as a loop. Which means there's more worth to it than him scoring like a 30 as a sub. Not happy with it, but it was the only player I could get to. Sharp was fine, I thought. Wasn't a game that kind of benefited him. And Graham put up a couple of tackles towards the end of the game, which saved his score. Yeah, 5 tackles, saved the score. Gorn on bye. Grundy, a huge 200th game from him. Just was everywhere. I think Witz is a little bit washed. Looking at his last couple of games, he did give up a big score to Meek. Now he's given up a huge score to Grundy. You could probably start targeting him, honestly, if this is how it's going to keep going, for like a vice-captain, captain type of deal. But yeah, huge from Grundy. It's still someone I'm looking to trade out in future. He's definitely not my keeper second ruck. I'm looking at English, Marshall, one of those guys. Once I think they've bottomed out in price, I'll probably move on from him. Just because I don't know how long Grundy's going to hold up this year. Older guy, had injury troubles in the past. Yeah, we'll see. Heaney, his first bad week, honestly. Like, I think 98 is sort of flattering him. What was his 28 touches, goal? Maybe 98's underscoring him, to be honest. I don't know what his efficiency was, though. I mean, look at this stretch. That's insane. This is why, if you brought him in last week, and I know a couple of people did, he was like one of the more traded in players that like ever. Well, like coming off his bye, you don't trade in players at full price for 100k less. You could have went to Flanders. You could have went to any midfielder, to be honest with you. Yeah, you don't trade in players at full price. If you miss them, you just wait for them to put up a bad game. What's his break even? 114. Could miss it, could hit it. Probably going to hit it against Hawthorn. But yeah, you can't chase this price, right? And that's what, going back to what I started with, like the team value stuff, this is how you keep your team value good. You don't chase players. Like, I could definitely go out and chase Luke Ryan, right? Like, he's the top averaging defender right now. I could go chase him, but paying up at the max price is ever going to hit. Whereas I could just wait. He's going to put up a bad score like he did this week, and the price starts to come down. Yeah, it's just kind of like Supercoach 101, I guess. Flanders 110. He was good, but his disposal efficiency and reading of the game could use a bit of work. I don't see any reason not to continue with him there. The athleticism and stuff is like a very good halfback. That 589, that moment of Harley Reid pushing him to the ground is like forever in the head, and it's been reposted on Twitter so many times. It's just the way Fife fell for some reason I find hilarious. Dempsey 53. I mean, yeah, Fife played good as well. Dempsey 53. Terrible conditions for him. He's someone who wants the ball in the air, and it was just pissing down. So definitely not the game for him. This week it's Carlton at the MCG. I think this could be a good game for him. I don't think Carlton actually has someone that can match up with him, like athleticism-wise. I could see him getting over the pack and taking down a couple. As long as he can hold on to him. He's had a real issue with holding on to marks. He gets up there, gets his hands on it, and then just can't hold on. Should be an alright game for him. What's his break even? 66. You could look at trading him on if you wanted to. The only thing is, you have to be careful how many people you're trading out this week because there's not many rookies next week. So far, I think there's only one available next week, and I think it's Riley Garcia, who plays for Bevo, so he could get dropped at any point. Sam Darcy had him on field. I wouldn't have fielded him if I wasn't lazy and I read up on the Ugelhagen news. So Ugelhagen missed. It was personal reasons, nothing to go into. But because of that, Lob came in the team. Because Lob comes in the team, Darcy doesn't get like a ruck role at all. It just goes to Lob. If Lob stays in the team this week, it's definitely not fieldable, right? Field anyone else. Yeah, so Powell's on the bench because the only way I could get McAuliffe in is to make a change, and it was to get Harley Reid on the bench. So I couldn't get Powell on field. Everyone was locked. Cadman, kind of honestly, this was one of the weeks where I thought he'd struggle because Sydney are good defensively, and now next week he's got GWS, Brisbane. Probably the second worst matchup he could have. 36, I think he could hit it. If he kicks like a goal, I think he'll hit it. They're having him predict at 78. I definitely don't see that. How is Brisbane? 10, really. Maybe their defense isn't as good as it looks. Because he hasn't really versed a good defense yet. Like maybe St Kilda. I mean, they got pumped this week. Yeah, I'm not too sure, honestly. Swans probably the first. No, they didn't play Swans. I keep thinking it's Gold Coast. It's GWS. Yeah, I don't know. I think you could hold him. I think I'm going to hold him just because I don't want to field Darcy or Wilson. Wilson, which he did score pretty well, 69. But this week he's playing Port, so I wouldn't really play a outside midfielder versus Port. And then, do I even... Am I going to do the Harley Reid spiel? Like, you saw the intro, right? Like, he's so good. Like, anytime he touches the ball, everyone gets up. And it's not just because, like, hey, we've got to keep him in WA. He's just so electric, right? When he touches the ball, it's insane, right? Even when he's not touching the ball, he's just running around the ball and you think he could get it. It's like, oh, here we go. It's the Harley time. Yeah, great player. So as for trades this week, I've got a couple that I've kind of looked at. I have activated the boost, but that's just because I was looking at stuff. I think it's going to be that. And then move Graham back, move Roberts back. Which will give me enough to get Hugo Garcia. Who I'm hoping keeps his spot. This is definitely one, like... You have to be alert to team lists and stuff. Make sure he does get a game. Ross Lyon is definitely someone that could just drop a good rookie out of the blue. Gives me 608k, which very annoying amount because I just miss out on like Sarong, who I'd like. Going into defense, I miss out on Ryan by a fair bit, but like, you know. In the forward line, I have free pick over everyone, but I don't know who I want. I'm thinking it's Shea's the next target, but yeah, I mean, I'd have to see. I'd say about a 7 to 8 game sample size of him being a midfielder. Same thing with Rankin. This is one that people were hopping on. This was like a 40 score for 3 quarters. I'd have to see about a 7 to 8 game sample size of him in the midfield, like full-time, or not even full-time, but he can't be rotating mid and he has maybe like 20-30% CBAs. I need to see like if he's a midfielder. If I saw that, then I'd probably bring in Rankin. He's super, energetic and everything like that. He's definitely the type of player to look for. Zorko wouldn't touch, too old, injury risk, flog risk. Like he'll miss games, right? Like whether he gets suspended, whether he gets injured, is 35 now. Not touching it at all. This is final week of the season. Maybe I'll bring him in if he's healthy. Luke Jackson, not a fan of how he's playing with Darcy back. I don't think, like the adage is true. If you have two good ruckmen, you actually have no good ruckman, because now you've split the time and neither actually have a chance to be good. I still cannot understand why Freo went for Luke Jackson. I do know why, it's so he didn't go to West Coast, but whatever. Harry Mackay, key forward, not touching. Hogan, suspended, and key forward, not touching. Curnow, no way. Waterman, no shot. Caldwell, maybe, but I mean, also not really. There's a couple of mids that still have to work their way back into that team. Rankin spoke about. Cameron, no way. Myers, no way. Brett Daniels, no way. Neil Bullen, not ever, really. There was like a one game stretch of him being good this year, or 2 games here, but nah, wouldn't touch it. Not with a 10-foot pole. Which leaves like the next one like in the list. Where was I? To be Brad Hill, which another super old guy that is going to miss games, right? Like whether it's by injury or just fatigue, right? Like he has to be managed. Not really one that I'm looking to have. 3-round average of 102 is quite solid, but yeah, not really one I'm interested in. Rayner couldn't keep it up. Dylan Moore, if he was a midfielder, sure. Lukosius, a little interesting, just because like in defense, I think defense is his position, right? Like I think that's where you should be playing him. He's not scoring the worst, but it's not very good. Like 95, 98, and 93 in there. I don't know if that's top 6, honestly, even with a shitty forward line. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe hoping Connor McDonald comes good as a midfielder. I don't know where we're going to get like F5, F6 from. Unless the next round of DPPs have a good player. I don't really know. But yeah, as for the midfield, right now I am leaning Walsh, which does kind of contradict everything I just said about like Zorko injury risk and stuff like that. This is one that I would not be advertising to people to go do. It's not because of the score I'm going after him. It's just because I think he could end up still top 8. And it saves me cash for next week's trades. But like of the ones I could afford, I'll tell you the guys that I'm like looking at. Tom Green, obviously, but he's in a really rough patch at the moment. Brisbane Brisbane this week. They're the best team. No, they're the worst team for a midfielder to play for Supercoach. If I was getting this Tom Green, sure, but he wouldn't be in my price range. Horrible history versus them. Then it's on to Sydney, which they limited a lot of Gold Coast this week. Essendon, I'm fine with. Like Essendon, I'd want him in for. Essendon, Dogs, Hawthorn, I'd like him for, but just not yet. If his price does hit 530, then I'm bringing him in straight away, but just not right now. What is his break even? I didn't see it. 183. Nah, you can't bring him in this week. Absolutely can't. He's going to drop huge. If he puts up a 70, what's that? It's like 25k he's going to lose. Not ever would I touch that. Treloar, never, because he will hurt his hamstring and miss 3 games, 4 games, or even more. Cripps, I don't think he's really that back, honestly. A good stretch of games here, but like just hit the ton, 110 against Adelaide. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. And this stretch isn't the best. So, who else we got? I know this already gone on half an hour. Dunkley, I don't mind, but again, he's not in a great patch at the moment. Rosie, I've actually wanted to bring in because I do like watching the Port mids, but his scoring is so up and down, and it's because he moves forward a lot. Yeah. Noah Anderson, I mean, that was a trap pick. I don't know why people were bringing him in. It was a clear trap. Brayshaw, I think the same deal. I think him and Anderson are basically the same player. Martin, probably more as a defender. Like if I did something like this, where is he? Maybe like that. I could talk myself into doing it. Because what would that give me? 1, 2, 3, 4 potential top 6 mids. With a possibility of 5. Versus, say if I was to bring in Walsh. This takes forever, doesn't it? I'd have 1, 2, 3, potentially 4. I'd have about 4 or 5 top 8 mids. I don't think Took is. I think Took's going to be a luxury trade at end of the year, but I think he's going to score like more than good enough. I think he'll be like maybe top 12 midfielder. Yeah, I'll go for this now, but it might trade. It might change. I mean, means I've only got to field Harley, and then forward line. Yeah, it is what it is. Got to wait for another big gun to pop up, then I can trade out these guys. And also, like I was saying, there's not many rookies next week. So if we go to the rookie pricing around about here, less than 3 games. You've got Conway is on his 3rd game this week. Newen this week. Drury this week. I wouldn't touch Drury, by the way. He looked good his 1st game, and I said he looked good, but I didn't realise Zohar wasn't playing, and that's why he was looking so good. Charlie Dean's not getting a game. Ramsden probably won't get a game. Gibcus done for the year. O'Donnell, I've never even seen him before. Yeah, I mean, not really a fan of anyone here. Like, Riley Garcia is the only one, and like I said, plays for Bevo, so he could get dropped this week, right? You never really know. And also, because I've just seen it here, if you've got Sanders, McKercher, absolute 100% must trade this week. Like, no doubt about it. Doesn't matter who you're getting in, you have to trade them this week. They've lost too much in value. Yeah, I mean, how long is he out for? 9 to 10. So I think he's solid, but I mean, that's a long time to wait. Field is injured, is he? Yeah. Lee Kalir is, I mean, he looks pretty good. I would like to see him a bit more. Maybe him as a, like, sit in the defense. He just kind of passively makes money. Jake Rogers did not look good. Jai Sarong, didn't really see any of him, and to have a 39, he probably didn't do much. Tyler Sellers is just terrible. 2 games, total score of 9. Yeah. Nah, there's no one here. You're hoping for debutants this week, which I haven't heard of any. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit hard to find rookies next week, so I'd probably upgrade this week and double downgrade next week. Or 1 up, 1 down this week, and then just a downgrade next week to bring in Garcia if it looks like he's going to hold his spot. But yeah, that's about it for this week. Not going to drag this out to 40 minutes. See you all next week. Tasty out.